sige na. So, ang atong topic karon is the account analysis. E mo na kung style pag-solve ng cash to accrual basis and vice versa. Because medyo difficult magutong formula katong prepaid accrued. Diba? Kung papabein, dada, bebe, ang sa to. Basta, account analysis ang atuang style tapos atong i-apply sa pag-solve ng cash to accrual basis and vice versa. Okay? So, sugod sa account analysis. So, ang first sa account analysis is nag-ingon ko sa una na everything will be easier pag naaning account analysis because instead of making journal entries para makuha ang isa ka problem, mag-account analysis na lang. And the most complicated na pwede account analysis is ang accounts receivable. Idagan kay may tabo sa accounts receivable, di ba? So ang una sa account analysis, you put the beginning balance sa iyang normal balance. And since accounts receivable is an asset, the normal balance is at the debit side. Kaya nung doon pa kanin. And then, you have our ending balance. And then, what makes the accounts receivable increase will also be put sa normal balance. So we have credit sales. So, paano kita makapag-aas sa accounts receivable, di ba? Pero, this accounts receivable na ato ang i-discuss, daghan kayo o mga items that will make it decrease, mga transactions. Example of those transactions that will decrease the accounts receivable are sales returns and allowances, sales discounts. Aside from the sales discounts, we have, of course, collections. And if ever sure na di na mo bayad si customer, your accounts receivable should be erased by means of writing it off. Tama? So, muna accounts receivable. Morning itong gamiton as model, it is because it's much more complicated than any other accounts. Kung account analysis ang pinag-uusapan, tama? And dapat ganun na siya partner in order to get the net realizable value of the accounts receivable. Kining allowance for doubtful accounts. Now, the allowance for doubtful accounts is a contra asset, so meaning the beginning balance will be on the credit side and ang ending balance na sa opposite side, which is the debit. And this allowance for doubtful accounts, kanang iwon man ang gidudahan, di ba, na di makolekta. So, pag magduda ka, your entry should have been doubtful accounts expense allowance for doubtful accounts. So, it's very clear that this account will be credited if ever you find some accounts doubtful. So, ang makapadako sa iya is doubtful accounts expense. And aside from the doubtful accounts expense, usilain pa makapadako duha ni sila. We have recovery of accounts written off. Kalimut na siya ba? So recovery of accounts written off are those accounts na you did not expect to be collected na naka-ebidensya that it will not be collected. That's why you write it off. However, siguro na konsensya, nagbayad, ang tawag is recovery. So makadako na siya. And ang allowance for doubtful accounts, mugamay if ever, na ay write off. So basically, these particular transactions, sales returns and allowances, sales discounts, collections, write-off, credit sales, and doubtful accounts expense, na sila yung mga journal entries. Now, if you wanted to be fast sa pag-solve, like for example, the question is, how much is the accounts receivable end? medyo lengthy pag mag-journal entries pa ka. So, mag-T-account na lang ka. You need to plot all the balances here. If ever this is given, this is also given, and all of these are also given, makuha na rin mo ang ending, di ba? And any of the elements, because how the T-account works is that you need to add all the debits. That will be equal also dapat sa credits. Because A is equal to L plus C dapat. So debits is equivalent sa credits. Now, if you have this, then you need to copy the balance from here to here. Because theoretically, dapat equal sila. And then, whatever it is, kung unsa magaling ang missing, mo'y mabili. Diba? And anything na gusto ipangita ng problem, basta kapalulang ka o T-account analysis, you'll be able to get it. Dili lang siya basta ending, not only the beginning, but all of this. Basta kay isa lang yun ang mawala. Okay? The same is true diri sa allowance for doubtful accounts. Now, that's the account analysis. So, let's apply it to cash and accrual basis. But first, let's go through the problem. The problem is ABX company has the following details in its cash basis financial statements. Now, discuss na to unsa ning cash basis financial statements. So, the cash basis financial statements has also debit and credit. However, nakabase sa cash inflow and outflow. Like for example, if there are cash inflows from customers, mo nang ibutang niya sa sales. So, it's the opposite of the accrual basis na concept. Kaysa accrual, regardless kung nabayaran ka ni customer or wala, di ba? As long as you done your part, you done the services, you done the delivering of merchandise if ever, or goods, you're going to record it as sales. Pero sa cash basis, no. It needs to be paid first. So, cash basis is nakabase lang sa cash na na-inflow from customer sales na kaagad. How about cash outflows? Cash outflows ang iyahang basihan pag cash basis financial statements. Ang cash outflows na iyang mahitabo sa isa ka tuig will directly become the expenses. So, these expenses here, like for example, this cost of sales, this is not cost of sales na itong nahibala na merchandise inventory beginning plus purchases. This is the payment to suppliers. Kaya mo mag-recognize ang cash outflow na. So, dili ta mo gamit itong merchandise inventory beginning plus purchases minus merchandise inventory end. Dili na mao na cost of sales. Kani siya, payment ni siya to suppliers. And these things here, like utilities na iyang recognize is ABX is in the cash basis. These are utilities paid, dili ni expense. And these are salaries paid, commissions paid, interest paid, and the taxes paid. So in effect, this is a net income for them. Pero kung sa accrual basis, this is considered as the net cash inflow. If positive, inflows minus outflows. Pag negative, mahimo ni siyang net loss. Siyempre, ang tawag is net cash outflows. Diba? So, from here, normally, di man idawaton good na financial statements. For example, diri sa Philippines, dili pwede cash basis. Dahil mag-cash basis, pero dili dawaton pag magpasa-pasa ng mga papel. And for example, magpasa kay mangutang sa bangko, dili dawaton ng cash basis. So it should be converted into accrual basis. And normally, the clients will go to you to transform their cash basis financial statements to accrual basis. Gets ba? So, here, there are other details. Kaya gusto man ni problem, you need to convert the cash basis to accrual basis. And there are details like the AR increased by 200,000, merchandise inventory decreased by 300, and other things na nag-increase, decrease ng mga account balances. So, how do you do it? How do you transform the cash basis to accrual based on this given information? So, the T-account analysis can help you. It's because from here sa T-account analysis, we can already say that this credit sales is the accrual sales. And sa cash basis, kanang iyang sales is this one, the collections. If ever na sa cash basis na sales, i-add ra collections plus cash basis, mo na iyang sales. So, you can fill this up. You can put the collections right here, and you can find the credit sales, which will become the automatic na accrual basis na sales. So, ina na siya kadali. So, wala kayo memorize ng formula, the account analysis lang, you need to plot, and you need to get the answer. Like for example, if ato siyang i-apply diri, so the sales ng ABX company is not this one, it's this collections. So, you're going to put it right here, the collections. Pila daw? 3 million. And since there are no given cash basis na sales diri, or what do we call this? Cash sales. Mga customers na nagbayad kagad ng cash, wala man, di ba? So, butang na lang nato diri kagad, collections, 3 million. Pero kiniha does not include cash sales. Kaya pag may utang collections, that means AR sa naguna. No? AR sa naguna, giutang ng customer and they paid. So those are the collections. Wala ilabot ang ipalit ron kasi bayad agad ng cash. Okay? So you put the collections here, and since there are no mention about write-off, there are no mention about sales discounts and sales returns, and the only thing that's given here that's related to sales is ang AR daw ni-increase ng 200,000. By the way, before ito magpadayon, the income statement accounts are related to a balance sheet account. Diba? So, we need to acknowledge that fact that income statement accounts are related to balance sheet accounts. Example, when we talk about sales, it's impossible that we're not going to talk about the accounts receivable. Or, aside from the accounts receivable, unearned revenues na account, those are directly related to sales. And when we talk about cost of sales, they are directly related to merchandise inventory. Actually, pag mag-compute ng cost of sales, na yung merchandise inventory. And because na ay net purchases, pag compute sa cost of sales, and the net purchases is directly related sa accounts payable. So, sa cost of sales, duha gyud na kasagaran ang appeal, the merchandise inventory account sa balance sheet and the accounts payable sa balance sheet. So ako to again, the income statement account is related to a balance sheet account, and the balance sheet account is related to an income statement account. Now, sa sales, the related balance sheet account is AR. So wala man tas kabalumatan na ka ng sales, cash basis man lagi sa collections. So meaning, hapit na siya mapuno. The only thing na gihatag is AR increased by 200,000. So, you can assume any number if you're comfortable pag mag-assume. Or pwede na kamoy mubutang dali So, if AR is 0, then since it increased by 200,000, ending 200,000. Or else, you can put here 1 million. And since it increased by 200,000, i-1.2 nimo, diba? The same answer will be derived isang pag mag-assume ka, bisag mag-start ka sa 0. Okay? So, since kompleto na diri sa credit, you have 4.2 million. So, 4.2 million also diha. So, if that's the case, the credit sales is 3.2 million. This is the accrual sales. So you can already put here income statement, accrual basis, sales. It's 3.2 million. Okay? So balik ko na po, ang accrual basis man good recognizes sales on account. The cash basis sales does not recognize sales on account unless it's collected. Diba? Pero both na mga sales ni cash basis o ni accrual na-recognize ng cash sales. Okay? So, ano yung sales? How about the cost of sales? So, again, that particular cost of sales is not really cost of sales. Those are payments to suppliers. Tama? So, if that would be the case, you'll analyze two things or two balance sheet accounts. We have merchandise inventory and we have the accounts payable. Now, accounts payable sa taon na kay mo may dapat makumpleto based sa problem. So, you'll start with here sa beginning kay accounts payable is a liability, so the normal balance is at credit. Tama ba? As ending. Tapos, syempre, the accounts payable will increase if ever na ay credit purchases, which is not given in the problem. And then, the accounts payable, if ever nang utang kasi mong supplier, will be decreased if you pay, of course. So, na siya sa debit ang payments. And it will also decrease for the following. If you will return or you enjoy purchase discounts. Like for example, you paid within the discount period. So, your accounts payable will decrease. So, those are the elements ng T-account, ng accounts payable. And if you put the amount 1.2 million, you're not going to put it here. Again, those 1.2 million are payments to suppliers. Okay? And then, wala may mention on purchase returns and purchase discounts. And we don't know the credit purchases. All we know is that the accounts payable increased by 150,000. So you can assume again. And normally when I solve, I assume the basis na 1 million. And then I put, what happened? Accounts payable increased by 150,000. So 1,150,000. Okay? And then, since the debit side is already complete, I'm going to put here 1,350,000. And this is also 1,350,000. Minus 2 million. 2,350,000. And then 2,350,000. So 2,350,000 minus 1 million. 1,350,000. Unfortunately, what we got is the credit purchases pa, not the cost of sales under accrual pa. Tama? So the credit purchases, 1,350, will be included here sa merchandise inventory because again, merchandise inventory beginning plus net purchases equals total goods available for sale. Tana. And then minus ending inventory. Tama ba? So, the remainder is the cost of sales. Tama? However, this net purchases is not the same with this because this is only credit purchases. Now, if ever you bought something as a company, for cash ka agad, dili mabil dire. So, bantayan sa mo sa problem, base na cash purchases. Because those cash purchases is not included here and should be included here sa net purchases.
So, net purchases, sir, no, kay kuan credit of cash purchases.
Ano yung credit? Cash purchases?
Ang purchases ba kay credit of cash purchases?
Oo, kining net purchases.
Sa sales na, credit sales of cash sales.
Oo. So, kini siya, accrual na ni siya. Kaya wala may giingon na cash sales. Pero kung nadata ni cash sales, sa accrual 3.2 plus cash sales. So, ang kini po ng gihatag, 3.2, tapos hindi pa pangita sa imuha is cash basis na sales. So, collections pa, imong kuhaon, plus cash sales pag yun, para makuha ang cash basis sales. So, you need to find if ever sa problem na cash sales, ha? So, sa dili'a, credit o cash purchases. Tama? Kining net purchases. And aside from that, this is already net. Meaning, gimaynusan na ning purchase returns and purchase discounts para di na ka maglisod. Actually, you can you can separate the purchases discounts, purchases returns. Pwede din mo siya i-separate. But it will take time na may pag-imo na lang siyang isolve as gross purchases, cash or credit, diba? Minus purchase returns and allowances, minus purchase discount, plus freight in, diba? Mo man ang net purchases. So, klaro kayo, this is very different from this one. This is simple credit purchases na. Okay? So, since walay gibutang sa problem na cash purchases, walay purchase returns, walay purchase discounts, walay freight in, so meaning, these credit purchases will then be copied na lang as the purchases, the net purchases na kaagad, ang credit purchases, kaya wala may laing elements. Diba? Uy. Now, what are those things na kinahanglan na ito mabutang dali in order to get the cost of sales? We have here the data. Merchandise inventory decreased by 300,000. So, if the beginning is 1 million, that means i-decrease man ng 300,000, 700,000 na lang din. Now, kung 1 million ang i-assume, tama? So, kompleto na ang debit side. So, we have 2,350,000. And then, since 2,350,000 minus 700,000, how much is the cost of sales under accrual? 1,650. So, you can put it na as the cost of sales. So, you can get the accrual basis gross profit na you have 3.2 million, 1,550. So, inana siya pag-transform from cash basis to accrual. And if accrual sa bang ihatag, no need na magproblema ka, basta kay kabalo lang ka, na pag accrual, kini ang mabutangan, kini ang wala, kung pabaliktad ka. So, you can use the account analysis from cash basis to accrual, from accrual to cash. Okay? So, you have already the gross profit, and let's have the other expenses, like the operating expenses, na utilities na iyang gisulti. Utilities paid na siya, 350. Pero na ay data sa utilities payable. The utilities payable is, syempre, the beginning is on the credit side, the ending is on the debit side. Mo increase na siya pag na utilities expenses, and of course, muga may pag na payments, mo may nature na liabilities. And based on the problem, the utilities payable increased by 100,000. So, if this is 1 million, this will become 1,100,000. Now, the question is, the utilities expense na 350, what is that? Is that payments or is that the utilities expense? It's the payments na 350,000. So, 1,100,000 plus 350 is 1,450. And you copy it on the credit side, 1,450. So the utilities expense is 450. Okay? So, you have already the accrual basis, utilities expense, 450. And you have the salaries. The problem with the salaries is that we all know that kanang salaries na iyang ibutang na 500,000 is salaries paid, tama ba? However, there are two balance sheet accounts that are related to it. We have salaries na advances to employees. So meaning the employees na bayaran sila muna before they render their services, tama? And we have also salaries payable. So meaning na ay mga empleyado na natay utang, may mga empleyado na sila mo'y nahiutang, but they're not going to pay it in cash man. They're going to pay it by means of their services. Diba? So there are two accounts. So the first account is advances to employees. Ang isa na account is salaries payable. Of course, the beginning of this one is nasa debit because advances to employees is an asset and the ending is here. Tama? Tapos, ang advances to employees will increase if ever mag-advance ka. That's what we call as payments. So when you add payments, paadto sa inyong employees, even if they did not give their services, advances to employees account will increase. Tama ba? Payments. And the advances to employees will decrease if ever nagamit na nato ang ilang services or what do we call as salaries expense, because when we use their services already, nakuha na nato ang benefit. Di ba mag-record ng salaries expense? Bahalag na bayaran nato sila or wala, di ba? Salaries expense. And sa salaries payable, this is the opposite of the advances to employees, di ba? So kini siya will become, the beginning balance will be on the credit side and the ending balance will be on the debit side, because again, this is a payable or liability. And sa salaries payable, mudako ang imuhang utang if ever you use the services of your employees. Tama ba? Mugamay po sa tag, you're going to pay the employees. Tama ba? And as you can see, for both the accounts, they are different, of course, on the placement of their beginning and ending balances, because this one is an asset and this one is a liability. Tama ba? But as to here, they are the same. The payments are on the debit side and the salaries expense are on the credit side. So they're the same. Tama ba? So in order to solve those problems like this salaries expense na naiduha or tulo ka accounts na related, may pag-imo na silang emerge into one account. We're going to call it advances to employees and or salaries payable. We have advances to employees, beginning balance, ending balance. We put here also the salaries payable, which is the beginning here and the ending here. Tama? But they are the same monthly. You have salaries expense and then here salaries or payments na lang. So, makuha na nimo using this big na account kintahan. So, the advances to employees, according to here, increased by 75,000. So, we can have 500,000 na po lang atong basis and it increased by 75, so 575,000 na ang advances, di ba? And on the salaries payable, it increased by 110,000. So, if our basis here is mga 300,000, and it increased by 100, this is 410,000. And since cash basis lagi, itong ABX company, then the salaries that are reflected here are actually the payments. Tama ba? Salaries paid. So, all in all, we have 1,410,000 on the debit side. 1,410,000 also here. So, 1,410,000 minus 875, 5. So, that's the salaries expense na under accrual, 535,000. And we have commissions. So, again, kay cash basis, commissions paid na iyang pasabot. So, let's go to commissions payable, which was given on the problem. Sa commissions payable, it increased by 40,000. So, if our basis is 500,000, that means the ending became 540,000. Tama? And then, the commissions expense ang makapadako sa commissions payable. And of course, since that is a liability, the payments will decrease it. And since kung cash basis lagi na siya, so the commissions reflected there are actually the commissions paid. Tama ba? So, kompleto na sa bang debit, you have 940,000. 940,000. So, that means the commissions expense under accrual basis is 440,000. So, you're going to put here 440,000. Tama? And, daghan pa man din eh, you have interest expense. So, the interest expense, wa po din nakalimtan sa problem, there is an interest payable account. The interest payable account, syempre, since liability, the beginning is right here and the ending is right here. And it will increase if ever you incurred some interest expenses, and it will decrease if you pay. Now, according to the problem, the interest payable decreased by 15,000. So, if ever, this is 200,000, the beginning, assumption lang, since it decreased by 15,000, it's 185,000. Tama ba? And since the interest expense there is 100,000, we put it here in the payments. We have 285,000. 285,000 minus 200,000, we have 85,000. So the interest expense under accrual is 85,000. And another thing that we need to analyze are the taxes. So the taxes paid is 150,000. So sa taxes, there are 3 accounts na po sa balance sheet that are related to it. We have deferred tax liability, deferred tax asset, and income tax payable. Tama? So, we just have to make a big T account to accommodate the 3. Kaya syempre, if you analyze income tax payable, na kung magsugod kang income tax payable, that's a liability. So, dili may putang ang beginning, ang ending din eh. So, beginning, ending. Tapos, muda ko, pag na-income tax expense, muga may pag na-income tax payments. So, the same with other liabilities. So, ina na kasimple lang sa. Kaso kanang duha man god is a little bit difficult daw kitahay katong sa ato ang liabilities. Pero here sa cash basis to accrual basis, you just have to kuan na ang deferred tax asset is an asset. So, pag deferred tax asset, of course, the beginning balance is here. The ending is here. Same ra na income tax payments and income tax expense. Why? The deferred tax asset will happen if ever you overpaid sa dapat nimong bayaran, di ba? So meaning, this will become bigger if you pay. And will decrease by any deferred tax asset in the future if ever mabawi na or reverse na. Tama ba? Income tax expense. Ito sa income tax expense. So, the same sila din eh. Isang pag deferred tax liability. Although the deferred tax liability, since liability siya, the beginning will be here sa credit because that's its normal balance and the ending is here. So you can fill this all up and you can get the income taxes sa accrual. So, deferred tax asset decreased by 10,000. So if this is 100,000, this will become 90,000. Tama? The deferred tax liability increased by 12,000. So if this is 100,000, we have 112,000. And the income tax payable, na increase of 20,000. You can put right here 100,000 again, and you increase it by 20 daw is 120. It's up to you kung sa imong i-try, but the amounts will be the same gihapon. And since ABX is cash basis again, the income tax reported na 150,000 is actually income tax paid. Solve na ni Beth? Tingnan na po ni Kaya. 482. 482 something eh. And then minus 219. 192. So that's the income tax. Expense in the accrual basis, we have 192,000. And since we did it already from the income statement of cash basis to accrual, we can already get the requirement. Diba? So, 1,550 minus 450 minus salaries of 535,000 minus 440 minus 85,000 minus 192,000.
Net loss.
Pila man?
152.
152 net loss. So, that's how you apply the account analysis and solving cash to accrual basis ng mga problems and accrual to cash basis. So, no need to memorize lengthy formulas. Now, in this particular problem, ang wala na ko na-appeal diri na illustration is all about the depreciation. Because in the accrual basis, normally there is a depreciation, pero sa cash basis, there's no depreciation because depreciation expense, wala may cash outflow na expense. So wala siya na-appeal diri so dili ni siya perfect, but I'm telling you na may depreciation expense sometimes if ever may mga problems na inani. And sometimes also, instead of saying that the accounts payable increased by 200, sometimes the problem will give you the beginning and ending balance given, which is much easier because you don't need to assume, you just need to plot. Okay? And last thing, before we end this cash and accrual basis, we have what do we call the hybrid method, hybrid accounting. The hybrid accounting is the middle sa cash basis and accrual basis. So the hybrid is generally cash basis. Ang hybrid cash basis siya, except for 4 items. So pag hybrid accounting ang ginagamit, accrual siya. Sa asa dapit, you have only 4 items. Sa mapa. So, accrual basis siya. And if ever wala sa mapa, then cash basis na siya. So, unsa man yung mapa, we have merchandise inventory. We have accounts receivable. We have PPE or property, plant, and equipment, and accounts payable. So the hybrid is only accrual basis sa mapa. All other else, cash basis na siya. Okay? So we don't need to illustrate that one because if we talk about AR, di natang AR o. AP. Nano po ng AP. Diba? So that's it for this lesson sa cash and accrual. That's the end of topic number 1.